Thank you so much. So before we start, just a brief context. In the morning, I was there in the first session where Arun was talking about the importance of MSMEs. The second factor he spoke about was the number of jobs which need to be created, right? So on one end, 70% of the contribution to what the GDP will be in 2030 has to come from MSMEs. And MSMEs will play a large role in terms of employment generation. The other themes there was about market access, access of finance, generally building transparent systems. And there's a lot of what we'll talk here. We have an interesting panel. I think the idea is to understand data is there. How can we bring it to use? How can we make it relevant? How can we integrate that with technology to build a scalable business model? So that's the theme which we'll cover. Broadly, if you ask me, market access, efficiency, technology, scalability is what we'll deliberate on. So if I could start with, you, Rahul. When we look at ONDC and we look at market access, as the key driver for MSMEs, how do you see that panning out? How do you see your role? How do you see that benefiting the larger ecosystem?
Thank you. So let's start with a simple question to the rest of the group out here, right? How many of you have heard of ONDC? Thank you. How many of you know about ONDC? Okay, so as in you know what is ONDC. So that's what tends to happen, right? I will actually, do you gentlemen mind if I spend 2 minutes and just explain out what is ONDC? Perfect. Thank you. So as a first start, right, why was ONDC set up? We were set up because we are here to try and democratize commerce. And commerce for us is not just B2C. It can also be B2B. Now let's look at it from a standard platform world, right? If I just literally put my left and my right hand together and couple those fingers in, that is a platform, which means that there is a buy side, which is where Rahul Handa as a B2B or a B2C buyer or a customer is going to come to, put in a request. It is going to go using their proprietary engine onto the right side, which is where all of their sellers have some semblance of a contractual obligation, right? Standard problems that faced are there are certain margin problems that are there for the sellers. There is a terms and conditions problem. There is disintermediation risk, and most importantly, for a seller to be visible across the entire set of customers, they have to be on various platforms, and that basically means that the moment that comes into picture, that means that there is an OPEX also involved. Okay? Now, anybody here has any idea how many Indians actually utilize e-commerce? Percentage? 30%. Try less than 6%, sir. Okay? Now, same set of things. What do you think are the percentage of businesses that are online? Any ideas? How much? 2-3%. You're right, sir. If I had a chocolate, I'd give that to you. Right? But at the end of the day, if you really and truly look at it, right, the numbers are just so against what a person would be online for. If effectively speaking, I only have 2 or 3% of the businesses which are online, that means that that's primarily going to be where that small set of people are the ones who are transacting online. Okay? To your question, scale and size. Scale, if we as ONDC have, we have a target. We're going to go down to 75% of India. When I say 75% of India, that means that we will go in and touch another billion people. Okay? We're not talking 5 lakh, 10 lakh. We're talking a billion people. Now think of it from the other side. only 1, 2, 3% of the businesses are actually online. And if you try and break that down and see how much of that is also MSME, I can guarantee that that number is going to be even smaller. Now, if that is true, then the headway for us is huge. And that's what we are trying to do. And that's the journey I'm going to ask you to join on with us also.
Thank you, Rahul. So, if I may, so this is the core network enabling market access. It simplifies the processes and the bottlenecks which are there in the current ecosystem. Let me flip it to inside the firm. Let me come to you, Praveen. And I know you believe that when we look at the GDP of the country, the next growth, the quantum leap will come from MSMEs. What role do you see at SAP? How are you enabling that journey for a typical mid-market or a small enterprise?
Sure. First of all, thank you so much for having us here today as SAP. We are truly honored to be here. Second, before I comment anything, I think it is very important to make a very standard disclaimer in these times. None of my responses are from ChatGPT. So I thought I'll just set that perspective for everyone. Okay. So to answering your question, see, there is no way around mid-market not growing or MSMEs not growing in India. We have seen that shift barely in last 3 years' time. Talking about companies adopting SAP, and most of you would agree that SAP is not a lightweight ERP solution. It's a fairly heavy-duty solution, now also available in cloud. From 2019 to 2023, our footprint has increased from some 32 cities to 63 cities in India. Now, these 63 cities are covering the length and breadth of the country. Some of my customers are sitting in the room today, coming from places like Nashik and distant corners today. So, this mid-market or MSMEs are bound to exponentially grow. All they need is certain stimulus, and those stimulus has to come just not financially. It's just not about government giving SOPs and schemes, which they are, but the ones who have leaped, they have leaped on the back of the technology. And ones who have been left behind, not to say that they are not growing, but the ones who are growing exponentially versus those who are not, the fine line of difference is digital and technology adoption. So clearly, the runway is out there. And finally, there was a very, very interesting report that was published a couple of years back by McKinsey. They spoke about a concept called the missing middle. India is a very classic dichotomy. On one hand side, we have a few thousand large enterprise companies contributing significantly to the country's GDP. On the other end of the spectrum, there lies millions of MSMEs, micro and small companies. And unlike other economies, which are, look at the Southeast Asian economy or China or any other place, they had a very robust base of mid-sized companies, which is unfortunately lagging in India. Now, unless these micro and small becomes medium and some of those mediums ends up becoming large, the aspiration of becoming a $10 trillion economy might not be achieved. And thanks to initiatives like ONDC and several other initiatives, I think we are poised to get these companies to the middle of that particular curvature and help the country and economy and those segments grow at a certain scale. And we are there helping them in every possible way.
Sure. Yeah. No, I think, yeah, I completely agree. Technology is that differentiator, but the challenge from a MSME perspective is when you're looking at technology, what do I do? Where do I go? Which systems do I adopt? Which provider should I go after? Rajeev, I understand that from a digital maturity perspective, there's something interesting which, Vodafone did. How did that enable an MSME to understand where they are and what do they need from a technology next step perspective? Would you like to share some, Sajid?
Yeah, thank you. See, like Praveen just mentioned, we witnessed a decade of digital transformation in the last 2 to 3 years. And every organization of whatever shape and size has witnessed it. And so, through our association with these MSMEs across the country, we realized that not only the organizations, the MSMEs require digital solutions, they actually require a partner who can guide them through this digital transformation. And to serve this need, we worked with Dun & Bradstreet and created a digital assessment tool called Ready for Next Digital Assessment, which is available on our website. So what it does is it is available free of cost, evaluation and advisory which is available. The MSMEs can go to that tool and fill in that survey and assess what their digital maturity score is. Now, so maybe on a scale of 100, you are at 30%, 20%, depending on what industry or turnover you have. What it also does, it also compares you with your peer in that industry. So you may be at 30%, 40%, your peers would be at 60, 70, or they would be lower. So what we also realized that the business owners, they evaluate their business on 3 aspects. One is the digital customer, second is the digital workspace, and third is the digital business itself. Now by digital customer, what I mean, how is that business leveraging technology to target, acquire, and service their customers? So therefore, what technologies are available? So we have seen that cloud telephony and those solutions are being used, or digital marketing solutions are being used. For example, you go to social media websites, and by the way, we also have a proposition there where we have launched a product called V-Ads, which gives access to MSMEs to all our digital assets like V-Movies, V-App, etc., where we have millions of subscribers, and you can choose the persona and the geography, and you can target your target audience. Second is business digitizing the workspace, which means what are the collaboration tools that you can use to improve, to help your employees to be digital, secure, and safe, and also can use those tools to work much more collaboratively and be more productive. Third is the digital business itself, all aspects or some aspects of your business that you want to digitally transform. So therefore, we have seen that products like IoT or cloud or collaboration tools are being used to basically digitally transform the business to take it to the next level. So you go through that. So at the end, it gives you a score, and it also gives you recommendations in the sense what products or technologies in these 3 aspects of the business that you can choose to digitally transform. So last year, we launched this tool called Ready for Next 1.0. So more than 1 lakh SME organizations have benefited out of it. This year, we have made this tool much more adaptive. So which means, for example, you're a part of a construction company, your turnover is 50 crores, 20 crores, 100 crores. The surveys are adaptive now. It used to be a compulsory survey for the organizations last year. The survey is adaptive. So there are 63 scenarios built in the survey. And at the back end, the algorithms built by Dun & Bradstreet run so that they help you get to that score, and you're able to take advantage of that. So that's what we are basically trying our effort to make sure that, how can we help the MSMEs in the country to be more digital savvy, and how can they move on to the digital transformative journey.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. So this was just an example, so what am I trying to do? If you look at ONDC, they're enabling market access for you. They're making it simpler. But that doesn't solve the problem. You need to build scalable systems. That's where Praveen spoke about how technology is a differentiator. But then that led us to the other part of the problem. What technology? So there are mechanisms through which you can evaluate what is available, and you can prioritize what to adopt for. So that's all part of the same journey, the continuum. Now, which leads me interestingly to the next part, at the heart of the commerce, so when I'm getting into the trade part of the commerce, data is important, trust is important. How do we build that in, Sumit?
No, I think it's a very relevant question, and data, trust. And I was noticing something interesting when Rahul asked, does everybody know ONDC? The number of hands were not too many. Then who understands ONDC? हाथ और भी कम हो गए. So ब्रह्मांड को समझना बहुत मुश्किल है. तो तभी अवतार आते हैं. तो ब्रह्मांड से अवतार तक की जो जर्नी है, it is where network participants like us come to demystify कि actual में ONDC पे करना क्या और कैसे करना है. तो what we have done is we have primarily launched the first B2B buyer and seller platforms on ONDC. Recently, it was in the media and कल मोदी जी ने भी announce करा है कि 1000 FPOs farm produce organizations अब ONDC पे आ गई हैं. So to facilitate trade for MSMEs, for FPOs, platforms like ours are needed. So ONDC operates through multiple layers. Parabrahman is FIDE, Brahman is ONDC, and then network participants are the avatars out here. So trust एक बहुत I think it's a very relevant concept, and whenever I meet Rahul, he also quotes that कि हमारी जब भी बात होती है B2B में trust पे ही होती है. In fact, the whole Indian economy before digitization, even right now, trade happens through trust. For all things equal, we buy from a friend. For all things not equal, we are still buying from a friend. तो ये statement मैं कई बार repeat कर चुका हूँ, but I think इस trust को अगर थोड़ा सा और break down करें, trust needs to be backed by data. Data कहाँ से आता है? Customer reviews, past track records. So when you formulate platforms का one utility is that you are facilitating buyers and sellers to engage with each other, but the other utility is there's a lot of rich data which gets generated. This data can be utilized to create trust. And in fact, we were just discussing before the event, like how can validations or certificates be created for this trust? Like आपका CIBIL score होता है, तो एक trust score on digital commerce कैसे हम उसको generate कर सकें? I'll give you an example, I think, where this trust becomes all the more critical. In fact, last week we were in talks with an FPO, which is a producer of saffron. Apparently, they make better quality saffron than what is grown in Iran. And one very large corporate buyer has been buying a lot of saffron from Iran. Now, despite the fact that this FPO is growing that level of saffron and the demand and supply could have been facilitated immediately, the process is somewhere stuck because there isn't a validation or a trust which has been built through data. So as platforms, we are always looking at leveraging technology to obviously open up new markets. The government is taking great initiatives in terms of building up the infrastructure, but market access is something what platforms like ours, like we've launched a seller platform which is called Bech, matlab tu sir Bech, and buyer platform is Order De. So we work in an environment, we work in a scenario जहाँ पे I would say the vocabulary of business is very simple, but behind that simplicity, I think a lot of tech and a lot of data needs to be backed.
Yeah. Yeah, please.
Thanks, Sumit. So trust, especially in an ONDC world, is actually very, very nebulous. Because I have a customer potentially sitting on a buyer application which can be like a phone pay or a Paytm, and the product is coming from like a SignCatch application where the seller is sitting even behind him. How do you trust where that product is going to come from to you or not? Right? Now, some of those things that ONDC has also done is not just from a simplistic perspective of saying, okay, here is a badge associated to it, but the badge is also very, very important. Please keep that in mind, right? So, whether the order is coming in from an Indian entity or an international entity. Let's say that you have a person who's sitting in Dubai or in Singapore and wants to buy a Kanjivaram sari. He can also go to one of the shops and spend 5,000 rupees, or he can buy it from the weaver in Kanchipuram itself for 1,000 rupees. Where is the trust? The trust factor is built on multiple levels. One is that can this person trust that that person is actually right or not? And for that, ONDC is also, the sellers on ONDC are starting to get Dunn's badges. So Dun Bradstreet is also issuing out Dun Bradstreet numbers to these people so that somebody sitting outside of the country is going to be able to see the Dunn's number. The second factor is actually a network effect part, which is given that the order is coming from Singapore and it is being delivered from India, we have had to build out all the other elements, which is how does cataloging work? Okay? If I pay, will my money get there? Will I get the product? So there is assurances that come into play from a financial perspective, right? If I have a problem, will it be solved? And that is where we've also built out a complete framework from an issue and grievance management perspective, right? The third one is an ONDC score itself to say, okay, again, based on data, which is to say, you know what, I've been doing hundreds of transactions per day or thousands of transactions per day. And based on that, my ONDC score is say 4.2. Okay, now those are different elements, but no one of them is going to ever denote trust. A lot of them put together will denote trust. And as Sumit rightly said, you only do business with people you trust. So trust by itself is going to become its own currency, but it has to be backed up by data.
Yeah, thank you. I think, very interestingly, at the heart of it all is ONDC, which is standardizing all the protocols for you, and whatever is required to trust those protocols. And then the second point which Sumit was making is, what do I do? How do I get onto the ecosystem? So there are tech players like SignCatch who are enabling that, whether it's a seller-side app or a buy-side app, they're enabling you to get access. All of this is generating a huge amount of data, right? And when you're fulfilling these business orders, the commerce, when it's being enabled, funding is at the heart of it, right? And, and let me come here to you, Anuj. How do you use that data which is being generated? How do you drive that data to make decisions, lending decisions, and what role does technology play in all of this?
Thank you, Hitesh. So the age-old problem of lending to MSME is to find out the intention to repay, the capability to repay, and to understand his cash flow cycle. Right. Now, 5 years back, this required the MSME to submit 500 sheets of paper to a PSU bank and hope that they will be able to understand and process the loan within a month. Now imagine this. Today, with a click of a button, he gives a consent to fetch his GST return from GSTN. With a click of button, he gives a consent to fetch his bank statement, all his bank statements through an account aggregator network. And a consent to get his repayment record from a bureau. All this happens within a minute. And behind that, there is a machine learning platform which is triangulating and trying to find out the probability of default for next 12 months, next 24 months for a given set of customers. And he gets a decision within 5 minutes. Now, this is the power of data. So what used to take a month or two, and then also an MSME was never sure of what happened to my application, today is possible within minutes. We at Ugrow, we are 5-year-old and are completely committed to apply data science to lending. And we have seen it ourselves. When we started, we took this target that we will give an in-principle decision within an hour. And in just 5 years, now that has become less than 5 minutes. So this is what the power of data is. This is what will make the SME contribution to the total GDP grow many-fold in coming years.
Right, yeah, no, and that's true. Earlier it used to take months. We've done an assessment where we realized that the biggest stickiness, with that bank and with that branch was that, I was familiar with their processes. If I know something is stuck, I know that person to call to, right? And it's not that distant past, but today, with AI, it gives you the power. You share your data to the extent you want to, for the purpose it is intended, and that enables faster decision making. When you use data which is being aggregated through third-party platforms, through UPI, digital transactions, it all adds to that decision making, right? And you don't need to lend, you can lend and borrow for a particular transaction also. I think that's what, has enabled this seamlessly, and also has enabled the tech ecosystem. Now, let's look at the other part of it, as an MSME, this whole thing about digital transformation, business transformation, very big words. What do I do? How do I do? Typical challenges which we may face, and let me just open it up, anyone can pick it up, So the broad thing is that when I'm starting this journey, okay, we are convinced, we want to make that start, but I'm worried, these are big words. What does this mean? What are the typical challenges, and what do you do to actually take that first initial step? Praveen?
So that's a very vital question, actually. Mid-markets, MSMEs often worry about the fact that I need to invest lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees to get there. So I think the first thing that the companies must do is to speak to your peer group. If you are in dairy products, go talk to someone who has done it successfully. If you're in auto, go talk to someone successfully. And there are, communities available, you can go and talk to them. Second, put down a very, very simple journey out there. Take baby steps. You might want to automate your entire manufacturing process as your end goal. But are your fundamental data collection points in place? And getting an IoT established in a manufacturing setup is far more easier in 2023 than what it was in 2015. Thanks to connected technology, thanks to the reducing cost of hardware, thanks to easy access of internet data and all of those things, it makes it easy. So I think the audit has to be at 3 levels for you to start thinking about digital transformation. A, where do I begin? B, set up a milestone. After this, I do that and that and that. And last but not the least is the choice of the partner who helps you enable for that digital transformation is rather very critical. We have seen lots of early adopters in MSMEs try something only to fail and never go there. Some of them, and I can give several examples. I mean, people talk about go digital, set up your e-commerce place, be available online for you to be discovered. All of that is great, and India is way ahead of several other countries. But the companies have had suffered at the hands of not so established player. We spoke about trust. A company, an agency or a consultant may come to you with a price, but check out their credentials and figure out that are they the trustworthy ones, or are they the ones who are here to make quick bucks out of you and go there. So that's a very important factor, and hence it is advised to all the companies that you might end up spending more, but evaluate them for their long-term feasibility with you, their business model, and so on and so forth. Then final point that I wish to leave for everyone to think about is digital transformation is just not having a website. Digital transformation is just not about creating an application. It's about the core data that is sitting in your system. Is that data visible to you or to your key stakeholders, be it someone who's managing your finance, managing your operations, etc.? Can that be made available for someone to see and decide? Is where the first digital transformation would happen. And then going to cloud is a very natural thing. I mean, there are so many hyperscalers there, they can help you immediately go to the cloud, do backups, and play with data there. So I think these are the 3 or 4 things, as per me, are very critical when you think about digital transformation.
Sure, yeah, thank you for that. Anybody who wants to add to this?
I would also like to add something, and the view probably I would like to bring forth is probably a decade back, the thought was technology is always something we have to upgrade ourselves to be able to, adopt to a particular kind of technology. But I think at least in the last couple of years, especially after, GPT and, LLM and ML myth, there's so much of research which has gone in. I think very soon we will start seeing solutions where technology starts adopting to our problem statements, right? It'll start becoming more organic. Like I'll give you an example. One of the typical problems we face when we are talking about digitizing MSMEs, and like Rahul was saying, B2B business is just not even 1% digital. Something as simple as a catalog, inventory management. अब एक MSME जिसको अपने business करने से फुर्सत नहीं है, suddenly we want him to make a digital catalog to the level of जैसा Amazon पे है, or, you know, get some inventory management tools and audit karna shuru kar, it becomes very complicated. So we've been trying to leverage some very interesting tools. Hopefully we'll be able to showcase those sooner. Is we're using like things like, you know, OCR. So optical character recognition, अगर कहीं पे कोई भी product है उसको कैसे visually recognize कर लिया जाए so that he doesn't have to physically input. In terms of being able to transact, instead of punching orders, can a person speak in their native language and able to create a purchase order? So simplifying, I would say the access to technology, that is another way of looking at digital transformation.
Right.
And in the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years, that is the way technology would move, in my opinion, and it will move very rapidly. So a lot of sunk cost in tech will be there. MSMEs have suffered in the past, and I think that's something which will have to be accounted for. But I think the newer technology will somehow totally disrupt whatever has been the way of approaching technology in the past.
Yeah, no, and very interesting suggestions. I think just to quickly summarize, then come to you, Rajeev. You know, so what you said, Praveen, was ask friends, you know, who may be in the same community, the same business, look at your sector and companies who are doing well, right? And what are they doing? Learn from that, you know. You said make it business oriented, solve simple problems, yeah, don't complicate, don't think big, you know, think small and build up on that.
Precisely,
Yeah.
precisely. In fact, one of the things I just wanted to add was like we were discussing credit. Like credit, finally, there is a certain data which is required in a transaction. I think as long as it can be seamlessly consumed, I think real-time embedded finance can be facilitated across any kind of a network where, you know, the effort of financiers gets reduced, the effort of underwriters gets reduced. So I think a lot of common problems can be solved using basic, you know, data silos.
Yeah, Rajeev, you were saying something, and then I'll come to you.
Yeah. So I think just to address this issue of, you know, digital transformation is a very big word. It's a buzzword today. Sometimes, like what Praveen said, I mean, sometimes it's very simple things that you need to do, right? So one is the Ready for Next helps you do that, in the sense like it helps you identify which aspect of the business would you like to basically focus on, and therefore what technologies that you need. I'll just give you an example. So it's not that you need to really buy a huge amount of technology to digitize your business. So for instance, there's a product called cloud telephony, right? So you can have a good lead management system where a customer can reach out to you at the night. For example, your business operations are 9 to 6. At the night, a customer can give you a missed call and you can download a log and you can reach out to those customers. It gives you 24/7 contactability and some kind of business continuity in a sense. Also, during our assessment, we also realized the feedback that we got. The customers, SMEs are demanding that, you know, the plain, simple, vanilla products that you offer as an organization, we don't need. We need certain value adds. So for instance, I'm just giving a very simple example. Today, a mobility plan would have a data bundle and some amount of, let's say, unlimited kind of a calling. What SMEs are demanding, they need Google Workspace to be bundled. They want endpoint security to be bundled. They want data pooling so that they can manage their expenses or spends much more efficiently. So that's the kind of proposition that building on the insights. Other things, IoT, as Praveen said, I mean, IoT some years ago was a very, very difficult thing to basically implement. And we have realized and we have learned various elements are there in IoT. You need a platform, you need a connectivity, you need a device has to be GCMA compliant, etc., etc. Now what we have also done, so there's a big sector which is logistics. There is a big sector of fleet managers or people who basically have vehicles to manage. So we come out with an integrated IoT product. It's a plug and play. You buy a device, platform, connectivity, everything comes. So you can actually, if you're having let's say if you have trucks, you can put those devices in your trucks and you can manage your assets on ground. Where are they moving? You can manage that much more efficiently now. So technology, I'm saying it's also becoming affordable. It is not that it's a pressure from both the sides. Organizations are also trying to innovate, and also there's a customer demand which is forcing organizations to come out with innovative propositions.
Right. No, and that leads me to another interesting problem. Does that help? I'll do all of this. I'm an MSME, you know. So one account which is at a manual processing, you know, doing it efficiently. But here's another one which is much more tech driven. and therefore transparent, makes their business model visible real time. From a credit perspective, does it make any difference to you?
Definitely it makes a difference, because none of these, so say for example credit, if you want to just digitize the credit part, that is not unlikely to happen in isolation. The whole thing has to go together. My perspective always has been that digital transformation forces you to have smarter processes. So if you get time and you are able to relook at what is really important and what is the real value I am adding, only then you do that digital transformation. It helps your business, it authenticates, it is more trustworthy. And with platforms now like ONDC, which are separate with a stamp of quality, then it really helps everyone.
Right. Yeah. So if I may bring you in, I do all of this, but then, and I choose a particular tool or a technology to use, but tomorrow it may not be relevant anymore. It may become obsolete. How do you, prevent that mindset? And why I'm asking that, because when you're doing ONDC, where you are making those choices, if something we can learn from that.
So, a couple of things, right? As an MSME, if you decide to choose a particular tool set, you're not necessarily looking at it for the next 3 months, 6 months. It is something that you're using to potentially grow your business, right? I mean, basically, when you look at it from a business perspective, why would you go on to ONDC? Primarily 2 reasons. How am I going to be able to get more customers? And B, how am I going to be efficiently be able to service those customers? You're not trying to go and do customer acquisition, because that is a problem statement that ONDC is already solving for you through the buyer application side. So whatever tool set you're using right now, it is not something that is going to be there that you're so married into it that you can't change it. So the idea should be that you look at a particular tool set, think about it, yes, whether I can use it for the next 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, it doesn't matter. As long as that company will be around to service you, right? So companies like SAP, it's not like SAP is going to move out of the country in the next 3 months or fold up. Similarly speaking, if you're taking on services from Vodafone, it's not like Vodafone is going to fold up and go away. So it's not like those solutions will go away. And as you're looking at newer tech, since they're not on your own servers, etc., they'll innovate for you. That is the beauty of a network effect, which is that you don't have to do everything. Others are going to continuously be innovating for you. And as you are going to ask for innovations, as Rajeev was just talking about it, right? They'll have to provide you with new services and new products also, which they'll be very happy to do, by the way. Okay? That comes to the other side to it, credit. At any point in time, whether you're looking at it a B2C or a B2B side to it, as long as there is data there, there'll be credit which will be provided. I mean, literally, I think one of the reports I was reading, there is less than 15% of the credit that is being offered out to MSMEs is coming in from formal channels in India right now. Okay? Please, am I correct? Right?
Yeah.
Now, if that means that the informal credit side is going to be the one which is going to be hampering you. So collect the data and take a stab. Nothing is gained by sitting very pretty and completely risk aware. Take a little bit of a risk. I'm not saying take a lot of risk, but take a little bit of a risk. But at the same point in time, knowing fully well that this is not risk that is going to kill you. Okay, take a little bit of a risk and see what is out there. But don't, for the life of it, don't turn around and say, I won't do this, because if I do this, oh my God, I might lose this small bit of money. Okay? So what I used to think of as play money, mid-term money, all of that. So use that as play money. But go and take a step and try and digitize one small bit. If you see benefits, then go to the next step. And you will see benefits.
I will just add. So let's say I'm an SME and I had 2 lathe machines, manual lathe machines. And I'm a business guy and it makes sense to me to buy a CNC machine. Now this is my core business. MSMEs today need to think technology also in similar vein. So if they have invested in something and then they find a new technology which will make their business better, they have to think like buying a new CNC machine. And that is the way forward.
Right. No, I completely, yeah, please.
Just wanted to add something. So, what the beauty of a network protocol, it brings in discipline and standardization in the ecosystem. So, they're not a platform, I'm a platform. They're a network protocol, right? But it's this imperative that as they upgrade themselves or as they bring in new parameters on the protocol, I as a platform can only survive if I also upgrade myself. So that standardization becomes key even for technology service providers, because up until now, everybody was running their own proprietary standards, right? But now if you're building on top of ONDC, that automatically the platform also upgrades. So that's an interesting development which is happening.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, so interesting, right? How it builds up small modules, go with a technology protocol which is established, right? It's not running away. Like, we said SAP, but that's what that means. Customize it, make it nimble to your business processes, right? That's how it will become relevant for you. Even if a new edge technology comes in, only commit to it when there is a clear differentiation which is established, right? Because when Anuj said, he said, that, it will enable you, right? A machine which is working slow in terms of processing per hour or processing parts per minute is still processing, right? It's taking the product out, If I make it faster, do I become more competitive? Do I gain more market share? And that's the commitment. So technology as a resource, it is a resource which you invest in your business, is a thought which we need to imbibe, right? The other part which I think we don't talk enough is data as a resource, right? So much data, governance around it, privacy around it, laws changing, but just how do we use that data to drive decisions, or even when we're taking decisions using our gut, to validate them, any thoughts on, any suggestions on how to drive that?
See, data is a core element for digital transformation, right? So you're talking of different technologies, you're talking of cloud, you're talking of IoT. It is to capture data and keep it somewhere. But if you don't use that data, then data is of no use. So it helps basically organizations, right, to enable, data-driven decisions. So for instance, like using customer data to personalize recommendations. For example, you do a search on Amazon today for a certain product and you drop off from the journey. It comes back to you making recommendations, offers probably for that product that you're looking for. So that's the power of data. So it helps improving your sales. It also helps optimize your processes. So for example, data can help you, monitor your production or cycle, and you can plan your maintenance much more effectively. So therefore, it can bring in much more efficiencies. It can help enhance customer experience. Using data, maybe your browsing history or browsing behavior can help recommend content. So what we experience on, let's say, Netflix or Instagram or YouTube. So that's the power of data. Secondly, data can be used to, for your marketing programs to help you reduce your ad spends and can actually, increase or improve your conversions. So for instance, maybe you go to platforms like what we have, like Vodafone Idea, ad tech platform. So it gives you access to multiple digital assets that we have, millions of subscribers. You can define the personas and geographies and you could target your audience there. So that's the power of data that you can use to optimize your processes, to make faster decisions, and to also be more innovative in your customer experiences.
Sure. Yeah.
Data is passé. Information and analysis on top of it is the age we are living into. वेरी सिंपल, हम आवक जावक की बात करते हैं हमारी ट्रेडिशनल बुक्स में, राइट? आज भी हमारे कई ऐसे होंगे जो हम लेजर्स देखते हैं. नाउ आज एक बेसिक एक्सेल, व्हेन यू वर्क विद द लेटेस्ट ऑफिस 365, that Excel has evolved to not only give you tables or graphs, it has also evolved to basically tell you that, look, these are the 30% of your creditors who needs to be chased because they historically, if you look at the last 2 years data, it produces that. So information has become reality, but with that analysis on the go, real time is where we are living in, and it is applying, as you rightly mentioned, marketing, in finance, in your credit, in your cash flow, everything is there. Second, let's not forget the democratization of data, which is giving you decisioning at the go on your mobile devices. ONDC की वजह से टमाटर 70 रुपए किलो मिलने लग गए. And round of applause for you, sir, because it's not that they are subsidizing it. It is the power of the data. They are able to bring out the remotest possible supplier via the network. And guess what? उसका effect क्या हुआ है? You know the effect of that? The shopping marts in Delhi have reduced from 160 to 69 rupees, 68 rupees. Why? Did they choose to let go of their profit? Answer is yes, because they were profiting in the wrong way. So the point is that we are living in a very, very interesting age. When data becomes democratized with the help of platforms, it's about your mindset to start seeing it in a different way and be ready to bring some data to the cloud for it to become part of that democratized ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe know your customer, first party data, understand customer segments, their behavior, upsell, cross sell, right? That's one part of the journey, and then the manufacturing part where if I monitor data, like we were talking about IoT now, how it's making it seamless. There are two advantages, right? One is on the sustainability part, just energy efficiency, I can monitor it better, I can be more efficient. And the other is on the processing part, right? Earlier, when this operator comes, this machine productivity goes up, but when he's on leave, there is a 20% dip, right? Now you'll know why, what exactly he's doing, and those are the differences, right? Why? Because you are making that company, that process independent of you, and the moment you're making it independent of you, the business complexity goes down, right? And that's the idea, I think, how we can make it all simpler and scalable. Yeah. So the other theme on data is what is happening in China, data localization, my data, not your data. Any views around that? Do you think that that has got anything of significance for us?
Okay, I'll take that one. Thank you. So at ONDC, as we are working towards saying that this is a democratization process for commerce. At that point in time, believe it or not, as ONDC, we don't own any data. As a matter of fact, from a simple perspective, ONDC is there to do search and discovery. Once the search and discovery is done, ONDC is out of that picture. Okay? So we are not trying to build our own platform. We are trying to enable people like SignCatch to be able to become bigger, to become better, to become faster. So that means that they have the data. So when in the standard platform world, right now, if you order food, the actual restaurant really doesn't know that the food is going to where. They'll have somebody who will come pick it up, etc. But that limits innovation, that limits the seller. Okay, that limits you as the MSME. On ONDC, that order is coming to you, you know where it is going to. What that means is that data is with you. Please use the data. Now, as part of one of the initiatives that ONDC has also taken is something called Open Data Framework. Okay? And the Open Data Framework is built from a very simple perspective. Can we look at aggregated, anonymized, non-PII data and give it to anyone who wants it? I'm not trying to limit it. Who am I to turn around to you and say, you can't use the data? Why not? Okay? The data is there. Use it. The idea is, it is there. You might be able to figure out there is a particular product or a service which is not available in some part of the country. And you might decide to make a complete business out of it. We are putting out all the data that we are going to have and collect and ask for it from the different network participants, put it out in an anonymized, aggregated, non-PII, non-competitive data. Okay, put it out there. Please use it. At the end of the day, people turn around and say, data is oil. Maybe. But it has to go from one place to another place so that others can also use it. And as long as it is being done judiciously, why not?
Just wanted to add on top of that. So Rahul rightly put it, right? I mean, they're a framework again, like, and it is platforms like us which need to leverage the data. Now the mantra we have internally is, as long as the usage is consent-based and there is a sharing of value which is generated out of that data, there is scope for everyone. Data is the new gold, everybody says. In the world of credit, अगर आपको credit चाहिए आप तो actual में सोना रखो या फिर data दो आजकल. It's become something like that, right? So what we are trying to build of late is elements where we are trying to gamify. We say, if you share this kind of a data and if you do an X number of digital transactions, this value will unlock for you, right? One of the biggest debates in data in terms of, using cookies and, in the internet space, खासकर यूरोप में आजकल जो चल रहा है, they're saying you are trading a consumer's data and making money and the consumer is getting nothing, right? So now companies are being built on top of that data to say, we will share that revenue with the consumer whose data is being shared. So I think data, if there is consent and if there is transparency in terms of who's monetizing it and if there is a sharing of that monetization, there is scope. Because the devil's alternative is, if you don't have data, then how do you customize experiences? अगर आपका डेटा ही नहीं होएगा, आपकी लोकेशन ही नहीं पता होएगी, तो फिर आपके पास कौन सी दुकान है आपको पता नहीं चलेगा. So data चाहिए to customize experiences, but not at the cost of fleecing you of your own privacy and your own monetization ability on that data. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, no, and why I asked this question was that it's important, right? It's your data. Why should I give consent? Why GST to enable UGRO to transact on a loan quickly? They are thinking about your data, right? Security of your data. How do I anonymize it? At the same time, give you what you want. So I am on extra time now. Importantly, I can take a couple of questions if anyone wants to ask questions, or otherwise we'll just wrap up. Anybody from the audience? Anything? Yeah, please, sir.
So the question basically was, what is the roadmap? Where is it that we are going to go in the next 24 months, right? Let me start with where were we and then where are we going, okay? Till late last year, we were probably doing 50, 100 transactions a day. And people used to kind of say, okay, when you get to some point, we'll talk to you, okay? At this point in time, we do some 70 or 1,000 transactions just in mobility. And we are doing something like 40 or 1,000 transactions per, by the way, this is per day. We do about 40 or 1,000 transactions across retail, some across B2B, and we are also doing stuff around like fashion, food deliveries, groceries, tomato, right, etc. So we are doing all of this. Where are we going in the next 24 months? We are enabling credit. So there are two use cases that we are coming up with are GST-based, sole proprietor-based credit. The second one is personal unsecured credit. From an insurance perspective, it is, I'm trying to remember everything, right? Sorry. So it is marine insurance, life insurance, health insurance, and also car. Okay, so mobile. From a investments perspective, we are looking at mutual funds, etc. From other units, we are looking at gift cards. We are looking at things like ONDC vouchers, etc. also. The idea is that we are working on is very simple. Okay, wherever credit is, ONDC will be there. It's simple. Whether you buy 5 kgs of tomatoes or you buy 5,000 tons of steel through SignCatch, any and all of those possibilities are going to exist. And as well as to make sure that that particular transaction you're able to get credit for using somebody like Ugrow will be there, right? And the technology provider could very well be a Vodafone or an SAP. We're a completely inclusive network provider. We are not a platform, okay? So we are completely open, which means that in the next 24 months, whether we're looking at agriculture, so B2C agriculture, okay, not B2B, that's there, with about 1,600 FPOs, etc., that are already there. But every day, whether it is toys and games that are going to be required, or there is chemicals and fertilizers, or metals and alloys, or we are looking at yarn, any and every one of these from a B2B and a B2C perspective will be activated.
Digital commerce, 6% penetration that you talked about, 24 months, where do you see that going?
Your guess, sir, is as good as mine. All I can say is that hopefully by October, we'll get to a couple of lakh of transactions per day. And as you can see, we're exponentially increasing, right? And at the end of the day, our single point North Star metric will be what are the different verticals that we are activating and how many orders per day are we doing.
Sorry, yeah, just one last question. Sorry, he'll just get you the mic, sir. Yeah.
I am Arvinder Singh Brara, Chairman and Managing Director of Mentech Consultants. My question to the panel is, what assistance is available to help in the export of services?
So, sir, as part of the 24-month journey, we're also beginning exports. And for me, please keep in mind, sir, the way I look at this is very simple. Whether it is a product or it is a service, and whether it is an import or an export of products or services, any of those are going to be possible. Let's take the direct line example, right? If you, as the person who's in charge of the consulting outfit, wants to be visible and discoverable to somebody who's sitting abroad. So I want to export out a service, right? How do you do that? The first thing would be find a seller application which will list your services. So somebody coming in from Germany or the US or wherever, right? Again, this is going to be a very data-driven approach, which is where we will look at and say, based on data, what are those different countries or regions which are going to require what type of products or service. Second part to it is, there is a DUNS number associated to you, for example. So the entity sitting abroad is going to know that should I trust this entity or not. Okay, so the trust element comes into picture, at which point in time they go out and procure it. You deliver the particular service, at which point in time the payment and settlement mechanism has to come into picture, because we have to bring the money back into India so that you can be paid. All right, and potentially some form of an export credit also needs to be issued out. As you are going through this particular journey, you may also require some level of credit, at which point in time your past history, based on appropriate consent, may be followed through to somebody, for example, Ugrow, and they may be able to provide you with credit also, right? So, sir, in the simplistic format, very simplistic format, it is search and discovery capability to be activated out. From a slightly longer term perspective and a slightly more involved process on how do I make sure that money comes back and you're paid for it also, along with the export credits, etc., that you get for it, sir. Does that answer your question, sir? My pleasure,
Yeah.
sir.
So, sorry, I've run out of time. Please catch them, ask them questions. No. The idea was to cause ask some questions, start this journey, ask more questions, create some confusion, but the idea is that this is just a beginning. That's what we've started.
There is just too much confusion about ONDC, so I need measure.
No, please catch him.
So one question basically, which probably will help everyone. ONDC is a black box for MSME. My name is Rajeev. I am from M Health. We are into corporate wellness. This basically is a black box as of now for MSME, those who are not technically sound basically from that perspective. Are we doing anything to educate those MSME owners or founders or something basically, because likewise GST, right? ONDC is something basically how we are kind of, any roadmap helping MSME like us when we should be able to take the journey ahead.
Absolutely, sir. Very valid question. See, most of us have actually grown up inside of a platform world. So it's very difficult for us to actually think outside of that platform world. But now, to your question, sir, couple of different tasks and things that we have done. As ONDC, we have literally just launched out something called ONDC Academy. It is run by the NSC Academy side to it, which will allow you, give you a bunch of videos to explain out what are the different things. And that is also there to upskill the set of people so that in case you do get an order, how do you package it? How do you send it out? That is one part to it. That is detailed. One level up is every Tuesday, and I mean every Tuesday, our team will run a business briefing call from 3 to 4:30. We'll more than happy to send you an email with the Google link to it. Please join and take up that one. If you don't have the hour and a half, look up on YouTube. It's as simple as that, right? Look up on YouTube and you'll find an 8-minute explainer video of what is ONDC. To your point, sir, if I may take another minute, okay? At the end of the day, if this was a platform where I have my buy side on the left side and the sell side on the right side, ONDC just basically breaks it up so that you as a customer, and the customer again B2B or B2C, will go to a platform again which is a buy side application, right? So you will go to like a PhonePe or a Paytm, okay, or an IDFC bank or Airtel or a Vodafone, anyone. You'll place a request for what you want, at which point in time it goes to the ONDC gateway, and that is all that is ONDC. Just a gateway, just a router. From where we will take your request and send it to various seller side applications. It'll go to a Magic Pin, it'll go to a SignCatch, whoever is relevant to your request. And the sellers behind them, everybody will now respond back to you on your buyer side application, which is like, for example, pin code. Okay? Now, you choose what product you want, from where, what price point, etc. Whatever you decide on, you never leave the buy side application. Your entire journey stays within the buyer side application itself. That product delivery, and once the order is placed, ONDC steps out. It's a digital transaction level contract. And the entire rails of what are the next steps are also defined by ONDC. So how do you do search? How do you do init? How do you do confirm, etc.? All of that process is done, at which point in time order is placed, the product flows back to you, money flows from the buy side application to the sell side application. Okay? And I'm more than happy to answer more questions outside, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think it was a wonderful session. We hopefully let out some thoughts which people will take home and will deliberate and start the journey, whether it's digital transformation, using big data, looking at technology, making less complex decisions, simplifying things. As I said, this is just the start. So thank you so much.